Chapter 6. The hospital lobby had been cleared of civilians, leaving only pack members, medical staff who'd been quietly contained, and the three figures at the center of an ancient power struggle. Lily watched in fascination and growing dread as Damon and Victor circled each other like the predators they were, their civilized facades dropping away to reveal something far more primitive. "The old ways, then," Victor said, loosening his tie with deliberate precision. "Combat to determine the rightful alpha. If that's what you want." Damon's voice was calm, but Lily could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes had begun to glow with inner fire. "But understand this, Victor. When I win, your betrayal of the pack will be answered with exile. You'll be packless, territorless. A rogue." Victor's laugh was cold and sharp. "When you lose, the human dies with you. The pack cannot afford the weakness she represents. Enough talking." Damon began pulling off his borrowed jacket, his movements economical and precise. "If you want my position, come and take it." The change began before he'd finished speaking. Both men shifted simultaneously, their human forms melting away as bone and muscle reshaped themselves with sounds like breaking branches. Within moments, two massive wolves faced each other across the hospital floor. Damon's black coat gleaming like midnight, Victor's silver-gray pelt bristling with aggression. Lily had never seen anything more beautiful or more terrifying. They moved with inhuman speed, colliding in the center of the lobby with a sound like thunder. Victor was larger, his wolf form built for brute strength, but Damon was faster, more agile. They rolled across the polished floor in a tangle of claws and fangs, snarling and snapping as they fought for dominance. "Jesus Christ," Emma whispered beside her. "What are they?" Lily realized her friend was still there, still recording everything with wide, horrified eyes. In all the chaos, she'd forgotten that Emma didn't know the truth, hadn't been prepared for any of this. "There!" Lily searched for words that wouldn't sound completely insane. "It's complicated." Victor broke away from the clinch and lunged for Damon's throat, but the black wolf twisted aside at the last second, Victor's teeth finding only air. Damon's counterstrike was lightning fast, a vicious slash across Victor's flank that opened wounds deep enough to splatter blood across the white hospital walls. The silver wolf stumbled but recovered quickly, circling back with renewed fury. His pale eyes found Lily among the watching pack members, and she saw calculation there, cold intelligence planning something beyond the ritual combat. "Damon," she called out, but her warning came too late. Victor feinted toward Damon, then pivoted at the last second, launching himself directly at Lily with jaws wide and claws extended. She barely had time to throw her hands up in a futile gesture of defense before Damon slammed into Victor's side, the impact sending both wolves crashing into a nearby information desk. The desk collapsed under their combined weight, computer monitors and paperwork flying in all directions. But the collision had cost Damon. Victor's claws had found their mark during the tackle, opening 3 parallel gashes across Damon's ribs that were already seeping crimson into his dark fur. "No," Lily breathed, starting forward, but strong hands caught her arms. "Stay back," one of the pack members said quietly. "This is pack law. No one can interfere." She watched in helpless terror as the two wolves separated and began circling again. Damon was favoring his left side now, his breathing labored, but his golden eyes never wavered from Victor's pale gaze. Victor pressed his advantage, driving forward with a series of brutal attacks that forced Damon to give ground. The Alpha King was fighting defensively now, using his speed to avoid the worst of Victor's assault, but blood was matting his fur, and each dodge was a fraction slower than the last. "He's losing," Emma whispered, and Lily heard her own fear reflected in her friend's voice. "No." Lily pulled against the hands holding her back. "He can't lose. I won't let him." But there was nothing she could do except watch as Victor backed Damon against the far wall, closing off his escape routes. The silver wolf's jaws parted in what might have been a smile, revealing teeth stained with Damon's blood. That was when Damon did something unexpected. Instead of trying to dodge Victor's next lunge, he met it head-on, allowing the larger wolf's momentum to drive them both to the ground. But as they fell, Damon twisted, using Victor's own weight against him. They hit the floor with Victor on top, exactly as he'd intended. But Damon's powerful hind legs were positioned perfectly against Victor's belly. A single explosive kick sent the silver wolf flying across the lobby to crash into the opposite wall with bone-jarring force. Damon was on his feet instantly, despite his wounds, and before Victor could recover, the black wolf's jaws closed around his opponent's throat. The fight was over. Victor shifted back to human form beneath Damon's grip, his face twisted with defeat and rage. "Do it," he gasped. "Kill me." Damon released him and stepped back, his own transformation rippling through his body until he stood naked and bleeding in the center of the destroyed lobby. "No," he said quietly. "You're no longer worth killing. You're packless, Victor. Exiled. If I see you in my territory again, then I'll end you." Victor struggled to his feet, pressing a hand to his throat where Damon's teeth had left deep punctures. "You think this is over? The hunters know about you now. They know about all of you. Killing me won't change that." "What hunters?" Damon demanded. Victor's smile was vicious. "The ones your human boyfriend led straight to us." All eyes turned to Marcus, who had been silent throughout the combat, pressed against the wall like he was trying to disappear into it. Now he straightened, a defiant gleam in his eyes. "You think I'd just roll over and let you monsters take everything from me?" Marcus said. "Lily was mine first. 3 years I invested in her, 3 years I tried to make her into something worth having, and she throws it all away for a fucking animal." "Marcus," Lily said, horror creeping into her voice. "What did you do?" "I made a deal," he said proudly. "Victor reached out to me weeks ago, said he needed inside information about the pack's security. About you. All I had to do was provide intelligence and help them get to you, and I'd walk away rich with a new identity far from here." "You sold us out," Damon said, his voice deadly quiet. "You sold your own species to supernatural hunters." "My species?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "I'm human, you freak. I'm not part of your monster club. The hunters won't distinguish between willing collaborators and innocent bystanders," one of the pack members said. "If they move against us, every human connected to the supernatural world becomes a target." Emma stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "What hunters? What are you all talking about?" Before anyone could answer, the hospital's emergency lighting flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Red emergency strips along the floor provided minimal illumination, casting everything in hellish crimson. "They're here," Victor said, and even in defeat, his voice carried satisfaction. "Right on schedule." The sound of shattering glass echoed through the building as windows exploded inward on multiple floors. Dark shapes rappelled down from the broken openings, men and women in tactical gear, moving with military precision. "Hunters," Damon snarled, his eyes blazing gold in the dim light. "How many?" "Enough," Victor said. "More than enough." Gunfire erupted somewhere above them, and Lily heard screams that were definitely not human. The pack was under attack on multiple fronts. "Lily, Emma, get behind me," Damon ordered, but before they could move, more windows shattered in the lobby itself. Armed figures dropped down on ropes, their weapons aimed at the group in the center of the room. "Nobody move," one of them shouted. "Hands where we can see them." The pack members reacted instantly, several of them beginning to shift even as the hunters opened fire. But these weren't normal bullets. Lily could smell something acrid and herbal in the air, could see the pack members who'd been hit stumbling and falling rather than healing. "Wolfsbane bullets," Damon said grimly. They came prepared. More hunters poured into the lobby through the main entrance, their movements coordinated and professional. These weren't amateur monster hunters or conspiracy theorists. They were soldiers equipped and trained specifically to kill supernatural creatures. "Where's the target?" the apparent leader demanded, scanning the group. Marcus pointed directly at Damon. "That one. He's their alpha king. And the human female?" "There," Victor said, indicating Lily. "His mate. Kill her, and you break him completely." Lily felt the world tilt as the implications hit her. This hadn't just been about exposing the supernatural world. It had been about destroying Damon specifically. Victor and Marcus had planned this together, using her as bait to lure him into a trap designed to eliminate the most powerful werewolf in North America. "Emma, run," she whispered to her friend, but Emma shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." The lead hunter raised his weapon, and Lily knew she was about to die. But before he could fire, Damon moved with inhuman speed, placing himself between the hunter and Lily even as his body began to shift. The transformation was faster than anything she'd witnessed before, fueled by rage and desperation. Within seconds, the massive black wolf launched itself at the nearest group of hunters, moving too quickly for their enhanced reflexes to track. What followed was carnage. The pack members who could still fight joined their alpha, shifting and attacking with a coordination that spoke of centuries of evolution as apex predators. But these hunters were prepared for werewolves. Their weapons, their tactics, even their formation was designed specifically to counter supernatural speed and strength. Lily watched in horror as bullets tore through fur and flesh, as claws met body armor, as her carefully ordered world dissolved into something primal and brutal. This wasn't the romantic fantasy of werewolves she'd read about. This was war, red in tooth and claw, with no mercy given or expected on either side. Emma grabbed her arm, pulling her toward what looked like a service corridor. "We have to get out of here." But as they ran, more hunters appeared, cutting off their escape route. These were different gear, lighter armor, fewer weapons, but their faces were coldly professional. "Target acquired," one of them said into his radio. "The human mate and her companion." "Perfect," came Victor's voice from behind them. He'd somehow slipped away during the battle, and now he stood with 3 more hunters, his naked body covered in blood from his fight with Damon. "Take them alive. They're our insurance policy." "Victor, don't do this," Lily pleaded. "Whatever you think you'll gain." "I'll gain my pack's survival," he said coldly. "Damon's obsession with you has compromised everything we've built. With him dead and you gone, the pack can return to what it should be. You're insane if you think killing him will solve anything. The other packs won't accept you as their leader. They will when I deliver proof that I eliminated the threat to our secrecy." Victor's smile was terrifying in its sincerity. "Your death will be blamed on the hunters, of course. A tragic casualty of their attack on our territory." One of the hunters raised a weapon that looked more like a dart gun than a rifle, and Lily realized they intended to tranquilize her and Emma rather than kill them outright. But before the hunter could fire, a roar of pure rage echoed through the corridor. Damon appeared at the far end, still in wolf form, his black fur matted with blood that might or might not have been his own. His golden eyes fixed on Victor with murderous intent. "The Alpha," one of the hunters said, raising his weapon. "No," Victor said sharply. "He's mine." Damon shifted back to human form as he stalked toward them, and Lily gasped at the extent of his injuries. Claw marks and bullet wounds covered his torso, and he was leaving bloody footprints with every step. But his eyes burned with unwavering determination. "Let them go, Victor," he said quietly. "This is between us." "Oh, but it's not," Victor replied. "It stopped being between us the moment you chose her over your pack. Over your responsibilities." "I chose love over fear," Damon said. "Something you'll never understand." Victor laughed. "Love? You call this obsessive fixation love? You've risked everything. Our secrecy, our safety, our very existence, for one fragile human who will be dead in 60 years anyway. She's my mate. She's your weakness. And I'm going to cut that weakness out of you." Victor nodded to the hunters, and they raised their weapons, but not at Damon. "At Emma. You want to save your precious human?" Victor said. "Watch her friend die first." The gunfire was deafening in the enclosed corridor. Lily screamed, throwing herself toward Emma, but she was too slow, too human. Emma crumpled to the ground, crimson spreading across her scrubs, her eyes wide with shock and pain. "No!" Lily dropped to her knees beside her friend, pressing her hands against the wounds in Emma's chest. "No, no, no, please." "I'm sorry," Emma whispered, blood flecking her lips. "I'm so sorry, Lily. Don't apologize. Don't you dare apologize. This isn't your fault." But even as she said it, Lily knew it was a lie. This was absolutely her fault. Emma was dying because Lily had brought this world of monsters and violence into her life. Because she'd fallen for a werewolf and dragged her best friend into supernatural politics that no human should ever have to face. Behind her, she heard Damon's roar of grief and fury, heard the sounds of combat as he tore into Victor and the hunters with renewed savagery. But all of that seemed distant and unimportant compared to the woman bleeding out in her arms. "Stay with me," she whispered to Emma. "Please stay with me." Emma's hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "Take care of yourself, okay? And maybe stay away from guys who turn into wolves." Despite everything, Lily found herself laughing through her tears. "I'll consider it." "Good." Emma's eyes were starting to glaze over, but she managed one more whisper. "He really loves you, you know. I can see it in how he looks at you." "Emma!" But her friend's eyes had already closed, her hand going limp in Lily's grasp. Lily knelt there in the corridor, holding Emma's cooling body, as the battle raged around her. She was dimly aware of Damon fighting like a man possessed, of Victor's screams as claws found their mark, of hunters falling one by one to supernatural fury. But all she could focus on was the fact that her best friend was dead. Dead because of her choices. Because she'd chosen to fall in love with a monster. When the fighting finally stopped, when the last hunter had fallen and Victor lay motionless in a pool of his own blood, Damon found her there. Still kneeling, still holding Emma, still crying silent tears that felt like they would never end. "Lily," he said softly, dropping to his knees beside her. His own wounds were healing already, supernatural regeneration closing cuts and bullet holes, but there was a different kind of pain in his golden eyes. I'm so sorry. She's dead. The words came out flat, emotionless. Emma's dead because of me. No. She's dead because of Victor's betrayal, because of Marcus's greed, because of hunters who see us as monsters to be eliminated. But not because of you. I brought this world into her life, Lily said, finally looking at him. She didn't ask for any of this. She was just trying to help me, and now she's dead. Damon reached out as if to touch her face, then stopped, his hand hovering in the air between them. What can I do? How can I help? Lily stared at him. This man she loved, this monster who'd just torn through a squad of professional killers to save her, this alpha king whose world operated by rules she was only beginning to understand. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know if you can. Around them, the surviving pack members were securing the area, removing bodies, preparing to cover up yet another supernatural incident that couldn't be allowed to reach the human world. Soon, this would just be another unexplained attack, another mystery that would spawn conspiracy theories, but no real investigation. Emma would become another casualty of a world that didn't officially exist. And Lily would have to live with the knowledge that her choices had led to her best friend's death. She closed Emma's eyes with shaking fingers and finally allowed Damon to pull her away from the body. But as they walked through the destroyed hospital, stepping over the corpses of hunters and traders, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking away from more than just her friend's body. She was walking away from any chance of a normal life, of safety, of peace. This was Damon's world, beautiful and brutal, passionate and violent, where love could mean the difference between life and death. The question was, after tonight, after seeing what that world had cost, could she still choose to be part of it? Could she still choose him? Chapter 7. The steady beep of hospital machines had become the soundtrack to Lily's guilt. She sat beside Emma's bed in the ICU, holding her friend's limp hand, watching the rise and fall of her chest that was only possible because of the ventilator breathing for her. 3 days. 3 days since the attack at Seattle General, 3 days since Emma had taken bullets meant for Lily, 3 days since the doctors had delivered their devastating prognosis. The damage to her brain stem is extensive, Dr. Martinez had explained with clinical gentleness. She's stable, but we can't predict if or when she might wake up. I'm sorry. If or when. 2 little words that had become Lily's entire world. I brought you coffee. She looked up to find Damon standing in the doorway, holding a paper cup that smelled like the good stuff from the French place downtown. He looked terrible, hollow-eyed and pale, with a gauntness that spoke of days without proper food or sleep. The mate bond was killing him, just like it was killing her. She could feel it sometimes, that invisible thread connecting them, stretched taut and fraying at the edges. Every hour they spent apart made the ache in her chest a little worse, made breathing a little harder. But looking at Emma's motionless form, feeling the weight of her own responsibility for putting her best friend in this hospital bed, Lily knew she was making the right choice. Thank you, she said, accepting the coffee but not meeting his eyes. You shouldn't have come. She was my friend too. Damon moved closer, and despite everything, Lily felt her body respond to his presence. Her pulse quickening, her skin warming, every cell reaching toward him like a flower to sunlight. I'm the one who got her involved in this. No. Lily's voice was firm. I did that. I brought your world into her life. I made the choice to get involved with you, knowing it was dangerous, and she paid the price. Lily, don't. She held up a hand to stop him, still not looking at his face because she knew that if she saw the pain in his golden eyes, her resolve would crumble. We've been through this. My decision is final. The bond will fade. Eventually. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. According to everything she'd researched, mate bonds didn't fade. They either completed, or they destroyed the people connected by them. We'll both be better off. Will we? Damon's voice was soft, but she could hear the edge of desperation underneath. Because right now it feels like dying by degrees. It did. Every day without him felt like sandpaper against her soul, wearing her down grain by grain until she wondered if there would be anything left of her when it was over. But Emma's presence in this bed, broken and unconscious because of choices Lily had made, was a constant reminder of why she had to stay strong. You should go, she said. I'm sure you have pack business to attend to. The pack can wait. Can it? She finally looked at him, and the sight of his haggard face nearly broke her heart all over again. How many of your people were hurt in that attack? How many are still recovering? Too many. She could see the answer in his expression, in the way his shoulders sagged with exhaustion and guilt that mirrored her own. 6 dead, he said quietly. 12 wounded, 3 still critical. And that's not counting the aftermath, pack members questioning my leadership, other alphas wondering if I've become too weak to hold territory. Then go take care of them. They need you more than. Nothing is more important than you. The words hit her like a physical blow, and she had to close her eyes against the longing that rose up in her chest. That's the problem, she whispered. That's exactly the problem. You'll always choose me over your responsibilities, over your pack's safety, over everything else. And people will keep getting hurt because of it. That's not, isn't it? She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze directly. Tell me honestly, Damon. If this happened again, if I were in danger and saving me meant risking your pack, what would you choose? He was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence they both had their answer. I can't change what I am, he said finally. I can't change that you're my mate, that losing you would destroy me. I know. And that was the tragedy of it all. She understood now why he'd made the choices he had, why he'd risk everything for her. The mate bond wasn't just supernatural destiny, it was love distilled to its most essential form, pure and consuming and completely irrational. But I can't live with being the reason good people die. Damon moved closer to her chair, close enough that she could smell his familiar scent of bergamot and wilderness, could feel the heat radiating from his body. What if I stepped down? He said quietly. What if I gave up being Alpha King, let someone else lead the pack? We could go somewhere far from here, start over. You'd hate me for it eventually. The words came out harsher than she'd intended. You'd resent me for making you give up everything you've built, everyone who depends on you. And I'd hate myself for letting you do it. So what then? We just give up? Let this bond tear us both apart rather than fight for what we have. Lily looked down at Emma's peaceful face, at the machines keeping her alive, at the visible proof of what loving Damon Blackwood could cost. Yes, she whispered. That's exactly what we do. She heard him take a shaky breath, heard the pain in it that matched her own. If that's what you want, it's what has to be. For a moment, she thought he might argue further, might try to change her mind with the golden-eyed intensity that had drawn her to him from the beginning. But when she looked up, his expression had gone carefully neutral, the mask of the Alpha King sliding back into place. I'll have security watch the hospital, he said, in case there are any remaining hunter cells. Thank you. And if you need anything at all. I won't. He nodded, accepting the lie, and turned to go. But at the doorway he paused. For what it's worth, he said without turning around, I think you're wrong. I think love is worth fighting for, even when it's dangerous. Especially when it's dangerous. Then he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of bergamot and the echo of machines keeping her best friend alive. Marcus Hendricks sat in his car outside the bus station, hands shaking as he counted the cash in his duffel bag for the third time. $50,000, his payment from Victor for services rendered, minus what he'd already spent on fake identification documents and a bus ticket to Mexico. It should have been enough to start over, to disappear completely from the supernatural nightmare his life had become. But every shadow looked like it might hide glowing eyes. Every stranger on the street might be a werewolf come to collect on the bounty he was sure they'd placed on his head. He'd tried to reach Victor after the hospital attack, tried to collect the rest of his promised payment. But the beta's phone went straight to voicemail. The hunter contact who'd recruited him had gone similarly silent, and Marcus was beginning to suspect he'd been abandoned by both sides. The smart thing would be to get on that bus and never look back. Mexico had no extradition treaty for supernatural crimes, and he had enough money to disappear into some coastal town where werewolves were nothing more than movie monsters. But as he reached for the car door handle, he caught a reflection in the side mirror that made his blood run cold. Golden eyes, watching him from the shadows between buildings. Marcus fumbled for his keys, his hands slipping on the metal as panic flooded his system. The engine turned over on the third try, and he peeled out of the parking lot without looking back, his heart hammering against his ribs. He made it 3 blocks before they forced him off the road. The attack came from multiple directions at once, shapes moving with inhuman speed to surround his car, claws tearing through metal and glass like tissue paper. Marcus screamed as his door was ripped completely off its hinges, as hands that were too strong and too hot dragged him from the wreckage. Hello, Marcus. The voice belonged to Victor, but when Marcus looked up at his former ally, he barely recognized the man. Victor's face was a mass of healing claw marks, his left eye sealed shut with scar tissue, his hair gone completely white. But it was his expression that truly terrified Marcus. The cold, calculating fury of someone with absolutely nothing left to lose. "Victor," Marcus gasped, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "I've been trying to reach you. About my payment." "Your payment?" Victor's laugh was like broken glass. "You mean the money I promised you for helping me destroy Damon Blackwood? We did destroy him. The attack, the exposure. Failed." Victor backhanded him casually, the blow splitting Marcus's lip and knocking him to his knees. "Damon lives, his pack is still intact, and the supernatural world's secrecy remains unbroken. All because you couldn't follow simple instructions. That's not my fault. You said the hunters would handle everything. The hunters are dead. All of them. Torn apart by werewolves defending their precious Alpha King." Victor crouched down to Marcus's level, his remaining eye blazing with malice. "Do you know what it's like to be packless, Marcus? To be cut off from everything that makes you whole?" Marcus shook his head, not trusting his voice. "It's like dying slowly," Victor continued conversationally. "Every day a little more of yourself withers away, until you're nothing but hunger and rage and the desperate need for revenge against the one who took everything from you." "I can help you," Marcus said desperately. "I know things about Damon, about the human girl." "Oh, you're going to help me," Victor agreed. "Just not in the way you think." The rogues, Marcus could see them now, a pack of werewolves whose eyes held the same desperate fury as their leaders, closed in around him. These weren't the controlled, civilized predators from Damon's pack. These were wolves driven mad by exile, by the loss of everything that gave their lives meaning. "You're going to be bait," Victor explained. "The perfect lure to draw Damon into one final confrontation. And this time, I won't make the mistake of underestimating him." Marcus tried to run, but rogue claws were faster than human reflexes. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was Victor's scarred face twisted into a smile of pure malice. Lily felt the attack before she understood what was happening. She'd been dozing in the hospital chair, her dreams filled with golden eyes and the phantom scent of bergamot, when something yanked her awake with the urgency of a fire alarm. The mate bond, stretched and fraying though it was, suddenly blazed to life with Damon's fear and rage. He was in danger. She was on her feet before conscious thought caught up with her, her hand already reaching for her phone to call him. But before she could dial, the phone rang in her hand. "Lily!" The voice belonged to one of Damon's pack members. She thought his name was James. "You need to get to the warehouse district. Now! What's wrong? Where's Damon?" "Under attack. Victor survived, and he's brought rogues. They have the area surrounded, and..." The line crackled with static and what sounded like gunfire. "Damon's hurt. He's asking for you." Lily's world tilted. "I'll be right there." She was halfway to the elevator before rational thought reasserted itself. This was exactly what she'd been trying to avoid, being drawn back into Damon's world of violence and danger. If she went to him now, if she answered his call for help, she'd be admitting that all her noble intentions about keeping him and others safe were just lies she'd told herself. But the alternative was letting him die. And despite everything, despite her fears and her guilt and her determination to protect innocent people from supernatural violence, she couldn't do that. She couldn't let him face this alone. The warehouse district was a maze of industrial buildings and empty lots on the outskirts of Seattle, the kind of place where supernatural battles could happen without witnesses. Lily parked 3 blocks away and ran the rest of the distance, following the sounds of combat and her own inexplicable ability to sense Damon's location. What she found was a war zone. The pack, what remained of it after the hospital attack, had taken defensive positions around a large warehouse, but they were clearly outnumbered. Rogues attacked from all directions, their assault coordinated by Victor's tactical knowledge of pack fighting techniques. And in the center of it all was Damon, magnificent and terrible in his fury, leading his wolves against impossible odds. Even from a distance, Lily could see he was wounded. His movements were slower than they should be, and there was blood matting his dark fur. But he fought with the desperate courage of someone protecting everything he held dear. She started toward the battle, then stopped as rational thought caught up with her. What could she possibly do? She was human, fragile, completely useless in a fight between supernatural predators. Her presence would only distract Damon, make him vulnerable when he needed to focus on survival. But as she watched, she saw Victor emerge from behind a shipping container, moving with predatory intent toward Damon's blind spot. The Alpha King was engaged with 3 rogues simultaneously, all his attention focused on the immediate threat. He didn't see Victor coming. "Damon!" Lily screamed, breaking cover without thought for her own safety. Her warning saved his life. He spun just in time to avoid Victor's claws raking across his throat. But the distraction cost him. One of the rogues he'd been fighting seized the opportunity, powerful jaws clamping down on Damon's shoulder and driving him to the ground. Lily watched in horror as more rogues closed in, seeing their chance to bring down the Alpha King while he was vulnerable. In that moment, she realized the full consequence of her choice to come here. Her presence hadn't saved him, it had doomed him. Victor's scarred face split into a triumphant grin as he loomed over Damon's fallen form. "Did you really think love could conquer everything?" he snarled. "Did you think choosing her over your pack wouldn't have consequences?" Damon struggled against the rogues holding him down, his golden eyes finding Lily's across the battlefield. Even wounded, even facing death, his expression held no regret for the choices that had brought them to this moment. "Kill her first," Victor ordered his rogues. "Let him watch his precious mate die before I tear out his throat." 3 wolves broke away from the main battle, loping toward Lily with deadly intent. She stood frozen, understanding that she'd made every wrong choice possible, that her fear of the violent world had led her to create exactly the scenario she'd been trying to prevent. The rogues were almost upon her when the night erupted with howls, not the wild, desperate cries of Victor's exiles, but the coordinated war song of a united pack. Damon's reinforcements had arrived, but even as hope flared in Lily's chest, she knew it might be too late. Victor's claws were poised above Damon's heart, and the Alpha King was too wounded to break free from the rogues holding him down. In that crystalline moment of crisis, watching the man she loved face death because of choices they'd both made, Lily finally understood the truth she'd been running from. Love wasn't safe. It wasn't reasonable or careful or predictable. It was dangerous and consuming and completely worth fighting for, even when the fight seemed impossible. Especially when the fight seemed impossible. She'd tried to choose safety over love, tried to protect everyone by walking away. But safety was an illusion, and the only real choice was between fighting for what mattered or surrendering to fear. As Victor raised his claws for the killing blow, Lily made her choice. She ran toward the battle, toward danger, toward the man who was worth any risk. She ran toward love, consequences be damned. Chapter 8. Time slowed to a crawl as Lily ran across the battlefield, her feet pounding against concrete that was slick with blood and rain. She could see Victor's claws descending toward Damon's chest, could see her mate's golden eyes fixed on her face with a mixture of love and desperate warning. "Don't," those eyes seemed to say. "Stay away. Stay safe." But safety was a luxury she could no longer afford, not when the man she loved was about to die because she'd been too afraid to choose him completely. "Victor, stop!" she screamed, knowing it was useless but needing to try anyway. The scarred werewolf looked up at her approach, his ruined face splitting into a grotesque smile. "How touching. She comes running to die with her mate." "Let him go," Lily gasped, skidding to a halt just out of reach of the rogues still pinning Damon to the ground. "Your fight is with me, isn't it? I'm the one who supposedly corrupted him, made him weak. So let him go and face me yourself." Victor's laugh was like broken glass scraping against stone. "You, a fragile little human, thinks she can challenge an alpha werewolf." "I'm the reason you lost your pack," Lily said, forcing her voice to remain steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. "I'm the reason Damon chose love over fear, compassion over cruelty. If you want revenge, take it on me." For a moment Victor hesitated, his claws hovering inches from Damon's heart. Around them, the battle between pack and rogues continued to rage, but it felt distant, muffled, as if the 3 of them existed in a bubble of crystallized time. "You know what?" Victor said finally. "You're right. You are the source of all my problems. Perhaps killing you slowly, making him watch, will be more satisfying than a quick death." He stepped away from Damon, moving toward Lily with predatory grace. But as he did, something unexpected happened. The rogues holding Damon down suddenly released him, backing away with expressions of confusion and growing fear. Lily felt it too, a change in the air pressure, a thrumming energy that seemed to emanate from somewhere deep inside her chest. The mate bond, which had been a constant ache for days, suddenly blazed to life with an intensity that made her gasp. But it wasn't just connection she felt now. It was power. "What?" Victor stopped mid-step, his remaining eye wide with something that might have been recognition. "That's impossible." Lily looked down at her hands and nearly stumbled. They were glowing. Actually glowing, with a soft silver light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. And the light was spreading, racing up her arms like liquid mercury, filling her with strength she'd never imagined possessing. "Lily," Damon breathed from behind Victor. He'd struggled to his feet, his wounds already beginning to heal now that her power was touching him through their bond. How is this possible? She didn't know. She only knew that somewhere deep in her genetic code, something ancient and dormant had awakened in response to her mate's mortal danger. Power sang in her veins, knowledge she'd never learned whispered at the edges of her consciousness. "Hybrid," the whispers said. "Bridge between worlds. Guardian bloodline." "You're one of them," Victor snarled, but his voice held fear now instead of triumph. "One of the old bloodlines. The guardians we thought were extinct." "I don't understand," Lily said, but even as she spoke she did understand, on some level deeper than conscious thought. Her parents' mysterious deaths. Her aunt's refusal to discuss family history. The way she'd always felt different, never quite fitting into the purely human world. The way she'd been drawn to Damon from the very first moment, as if some part of her had been waiting her entire life to find him. "Human-wolf hybrids," Victor explained, his scarred face twisting with hatred. "Born to bridge our worlds, to keep the peace between species. They were hunted to extinction centuries ago because they were too dangerous, too powerful." "Not extinct," Lily said quietly, and now her voice carried harmonics that shouldn't have been possible from a human throat. "Just hidden. Just waiting." The power continued to build inside her, and with it came instinctive knowledge of what she was capable of. She could feel every werewolf in the vicinity, could sense their injuries, their pain, their desperate need for healing. The pack members fighting Victor's rogues, wounded but still standing. Damon, bleeding but alive, his golden eyes fixed on her with wonder and fierce pride. And Victor himself, consumed by madness and rage, a cancer that needed to be cut out before it could spread further. "This changes nothing," Victor growled, but he was backing away from her now, recognizing the threat she represented. "Guardian or not, you're untrained, untested. I have centuries of experience. And I have something you'll never understand," Lily interrupted, taking a step toward him. The silver light around her intensified, and she could feel the pack's strength flowing through their bonds to Damon, and through Damon to her. "I have love. Real love, not the twisted obsession you call loyalty." Victor snarled and leaped toward her, claws extended, moving with inhuman speed. But Lily was faster. She caught his wrists in hands that glowed like starlight, and where her skin touched his flesh began to smoke. Victor screamed, trying to pull away, but her grip was iron-strong now, enhanced by power that had been sleeping in her blood for 26 years. "This is for Emma," she said quietly, and silver fire raced along Victor's arms. "For the pack members you killed. For the innocent people caught in your war." "Please," Victor gasped, his arrogance cracking into desperate pleading. "I was just trying to protect." "You were trying to destroy," Lily corrected. "And you almost succeeded." The silver fire reached Victor's chest, and his scream cut off abruptly as the light consumed him from within. For a moment he glowed like a star, his form wavering between human and wolf, and something else entirely. Then the light faded, and where Victor had stood, there was only empty air and the lingering scent of ozone. Lily staggered, the power leaving her as quickly as it had come, leaving her feeling drained and strangely hollow. But before she could fall, strong arms caught her, pulling her against a familiar chest that smelled of bergamot and wild spaces. "I've got you," Damon murmured against her hair. "I've got you, and I'm never letting go again." Around them, the battle was ending. The rogues, leaderless and broken, were either fleeing into the night or surrendering to the pack. But Lily barely noticed, too focused on the way Damon's heartbeat felt against her cheek, the way his hands trembled as they stroked her hair. "You came back," he said, and she could hear tears in his voice. "Even after everything, you came back." "I never really left," she admitted, tilting her head up to meet his golden eyes. "I was just too scared to admit it." "And now?" Lily looked around at the aftermath of the battle, at pack members tending each other's wounds, at the empty space where Victor had stood, at the proof of what she was capable of when she stopped running from her nature. "Now I'm still scared," she said honestly. "But I'm more scared of losing you than I am of anything else." Damon's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "Even if loving me means accepting a world of danger and violence?" "Even if loving you means becoming dangerous myself," she replied, and kissed him with all the passion and commitment she'd been holding back for days. The kiss tasted like blood and tears and the promise of forever. They found Marcus an hour later, bound and beaten in the back of an abandoned van a few blocks from the warehouse. He was barely conscious when they cut him free, his face a mass of bruises and his breathing labored. "Lily," he whispered when he saw her, his voice barely audible. "You came." "Of course I came," she said, though she felt no warmth for the man who had caused so much pain. "We're taking you to a hospital." "No." Marcus struggled to sit up, his hand clutching weakly at her arm. "No hospitals. They'll ask questions I can't answer." "Marcus, you need medical attention." "I need forgiveness," he interrupted, his eyes desperate and pleading. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know I never meant for Emma to get hurt. I never meant for any of this to go so far." Lily looked down at the man who had terrorized her for months, who had betrayed them all to supernatural hunters, who had been willing to see her die for money and revenge. She should feel hatred, should want him to suffer as he'd made others suffer. Instead, she felt only pity. "I know," she said quietly. "I know you're sorry. Victor promised me protection, a new life away from all this supernatural insanity," Marcus continued, his words coming faster now, as if he was afraid he'd run out of time. "But when the attack failed, when his rogues captured me, he told me the truth. There was never going to be protection. He was always planning to kill me once I'd served my purpose." "Marcus." "He's not done," Marcus said urgently. "Victor. He had contingency plans, backup schemes. Even with him gone, there are others, hunters, rogues, enemies who want to see the pack destroyed." Before Lily could ask what he meant, the sound of approaching engines cut through the night. Not the measured rumble of pack motorcycles, but the aggressive roar of vehicles driven by people with nothing left to lose. "They're coming," Marcus gasped, struggling to his feet. His backup plan. If the direct assault failed, he arranged for human extremists to firebomb the pack's safe houses. They think they're eliminating a terrorist cell. Horror washed over Lily as she realized what he meant. The packs wounded their children, the elders who couldn't fight. They were all gathered at the main safe house, waiting for news of the battle. "How many?" Damon demanded. 24, maybe more. Military trained, armed with incendiaries. Marcus swayed on his feet, but his voice was steady. "They'll be there in minutes." Damon was already reaching for his phone, but Marcus caught his wrist. "There's more," he said. "Victor told them to watch for escaping werewolves. They have sharpshooters positioned around the building, orders to kill anyone who tries to leave. Then we evacuate through the tunnels." "Blocked," Marcus said grimly. He thought of everything. The only way in or out is through the front, directly into their line of fire. Lily felt the blood drain from her face as the implications hit her. The pack's most vulnerable members were trapped, with heavily armed extremists closing in and no way to escape without walking into a massacre. "Unless," Marcus said quietly, "someone creates a distraction. Someone they won't expect." He was looking directly at her as he spoke, and Lily understood. A human, especially a human they'd identify as a hostage or victim, could approach the building without triggering their paranoid defenses. "Absolutely not," Damon said immediately. "I won't let you walk into another trap." "It's not a trap," Marcus said. "It's a sacrifice. Mine, not hers." Before anyone could stop him, Marcus pulled a pistol from his jacket, probably taken from one of Victor's rogues, and pressed it into Lily's hands. "I'm going to walk up to their perimeter," he said calmly. "I'm going to tell them I escaped from the werewolves, that I have information about their defenses. While they're focused on me, you evacuate your people through the confusion." "Marcus, no," Lily said. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." His smile was sad but genuine, the first real expression of peace she'd seen on his face since they'd dated. "I destroyed everything good in my life because I was too proud and too scared to let you go. Let me do one thing right." "They'll kill you." "Probably." Marcus shrugged. "But maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe dying to save innocent people is the only way I can balance the scales." Before Lily could argue further, Marcus was walking away, moving toward the approaching vehicles with steady, determined steps. She started to follow, but Damon caught her arm. "Let him go," he said gently. "Let him choose his own redemption." They watched from the shadows as Marcus approached the extremists' convoy, his hands raised in apparent surrender. Even from a distance, they could hear him talking, spinning some story about being held captive by the monsters, offering to lead them to the pack's weakness. It worked. The heavily armed humans clustered around Marcus, their attention focused entirely on his supposed intelligence briefing. They never saw the pack members slipping through the darkness behind them, evacuating the safe house's occupants through windows and back exits. The deception lasted almost 10 minutes, long enough for every vulnerable pack member to reach safety. Then one of the extremists noticed the empty building and realized they'd been played. The gunshots echoed across the warehouse district like thunder, and Marcus fell to the ground, his body riddled with bullets. But he was smiling as he died, his eyes finding Lily's face in the darkness. "Thank you," he mouthed silently, "for showing me what real love looks like." And then he was gone, the man who had terrorized her finding peace at last in sacrifice. 3 months later. "You may not want to look at this," Dr. Martinez said gently, but his eyes were bright with the kind of wonder that made medicine worthwhile. Lily held Emma's hand as her best friend slowly opened her eyes, blinking in the soft afternoon light filtering through the hospital window. It had been 3 months since the attack, 3 months of coma and uncertainty and desperate hope. 3 months of Lily learning to control her newfound abilities, of accepting her role as Luna Queen of the Pacific Northwest Pack, of planning a mating ceremony that would unite not just 2 hearts but 2 worlds. "Lily." Emma's voice was hoarse from disuse, but it was the most beautiful sound Lily had heard in months. "I'm here," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm right here. What happened? I remember being at work, and then—" Emma frowned, her brow furrowing with concentration. "There was some kind of emergency? A chemical spill?" "Something like that," Lily said carefully. The Pack's memory specialists had done their work well. Emma's mind had edited out the supernatural elements of her trauma, leaving only vague recollections of a hospital emergency that had gone wrong. "How long was I out?" 3 months. "But you're going to be fine." "Better than fine, actually." And she was. Dr. Martinez had been amazed by the speed and completeness of Emma's recovery. What should have been permanent brain damage had healed without a trace, leaving her neurologically perfect. Lily suspected her own powers had something to do with that, the unconscious healing energy she'd been directing toward her friend for months. But she'd never tell Emma that, never burden her with the knowledge of what she'd truly lost. 3 months, Emma said wonderingly. "God, I must have missed so much. How's work? How's your love life? Are you still seeing that gorgeous CEO?" Lily's laugh was bright with tears and joy, and the relief of having her best friend back. "Actually, we're getting married." "Married? When? Why didn't you wake me up sooner?" Emma struggled to sit up, her eyes bright with excitement. "I have to be your maid of honor. It's written in the best friend code." "The ceremony is next week," Lily said. "And yes, you're absolutely going to be my maid of honor. If you're feeling up to it." "I'll be feeling up to it if I have to will myself to health through sheer stubbornness," Emma declared. "I'm not missing your wedding to Prince Charming." If only she knew, Lily thought, how literally accurate that description was. The full moon hung like a silver coin in the clear night sky, bathing the forest clearing in ethereal light. Lily stood at the edge of the circle of ancient oak trees, her hands shaking as she smoothed down the flowing white dress that seemed to glow in the moonlight. Around the perimeter of the clearing, the entire pack waited in respectful silence. Not just Damon's wolves, but representatives from other territories who had come to witness the mating of their alpha king to his extraordinary Luna Queen. "Ready?" Emma asked, appearing at her elbow with a bouquet of white roses and silver wolfsbane. The flower that had once been their greatest threat, now transformed into a symbol of unity between worlds. "As ready as someone can be to marry a werewolf king in front of a supernatural audience," Lily replied, her voice steady despite her nerves. Emma laughed, completely at ease with what she believed was an elaborate themed wedding in a forest preserve. "I still think you could have gone with something more traditional, but I have to admit, this is pretty magical." "You have no idea," Lily thought, but she just smiled and squeezed her best friend's hand. "Besides," Emma continued, "the way that man looks at you, I think he'd marry you in a McDonald's parking lot if that's what you wanted." As if summoned by her words, Damon appeared at the far end of the clearing. He wore simple black clothes that emphasized his tall, powerful frame, and his golden eyes found hers immediately across the distance. Even with 50 feet and a crowd of werewolves between them, Lily felt the mate bond sing with recognition and love. "Showtime," Emma whispered, giving her a gentle push forward. Lily walked through the circle of pack members, feeling their approval and welcome wash over her like warm water. These were her people now, her family, and she belonged here in ways she was still learning to understand. Halfway to Damon, she felt the familiar tingle of power beginning to build in her chest. Not the explosive energy she'd wielded against Victor, but something gentler, warmer. The healing magic that was her birthright, the bridge-building power that would help unite their worlds. By the time she reached Damon's side, she was glowing softly with silver light, and the pack's voices rose in harmonized howls of celebration. "You're beautiful," Damon murmured, taking her hands in his. "You're perfect." "I'm yours," she replied, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The ceremony itself was a blend of human and werewolf traditions, officiated by the pack's eldest member and witnessed under the light of the full moon. They exchanged rings and vows, promised to love and protect each other through all the dangers their world might bring. But the real magic happened when Damon tilted his head, exposing the strong line of his throat, and Lily understood what he was offering. The claiming bite. The final bond that would unite them not just emotionally but supernaturally, making her not just his mate, but his equal partner in ruling the pack. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. "Once this is done, there's no going back. You'll be part of this world forever." Lily looked around the clearing at the faces watching her, pack members who had become family, Emma beaming with joy at what she thought was just an elaborate wedding kiss, the forest itself seeming to hold its breath in anticipation. This world had cost her so much. Her innocence, her simple human life, her best friend's health, her peace of mind. But it had also given her love beyond her wildest dreams, power she'd never imagined possessing, and a sense of belonging she'd searched for her entire life. "I was always part of this world," she said, tilting her head to mirror his posture. "I just didn't know it yet." Damon's bite was gentle but firm, his teeth finding the perfect spot at the junction of her neck and shoulder. Lily felt the brief flash of pain, followed by a rush of pleasure and power that made her gasp. The mate bond, already strong, blazed into something transcendent, connecting them so completely that she could feel his heartbeat as clearly as her own. When he released her, she was no longer just Lily Chun, freelance graphic designer with a complicated love life. She was Luna, Queen of the Pacific Northwest Pack, bridge between the human and supernatural worlds, guardian of ancient bloodlines. She was home. As the pack's howls of celebration echoed through the forest, Damon pulled her close and whispered against her ear. "Forever?" "Forever," she agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss that tasted of moonlight and destiny and the wild magic of a love that had conquered every obstacle placed in its path. Around them, the pack celebrated the union of their king and queen, the joining of two souls that had found each other against impossible odds. And in the distance, barely audible over the sounds of joy, a wolf howled its blessing from somewhere deep in the ancient woods. A reminder that some bonds are written in starlight and sealed with silver fire, meant to last through all the turnings of the world. Lily Chun Blackwood, Luna Queen and Guardian, held her mate close and knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Forever bound, forever protected, forever loved. The moon smiled down on them all, and the forest kept their secrets safe. Epilogue. 5 years later. The scent of coffee and cinnamon rolls drifted through the morning air as Lily Chun Blackwood made her way through the bustling Pike Place market, her 3-year-old daughter's small hand tucked securely in hers. Luna, named for her mother's title and her birth under the full moon, was a perfect blend of her parents, with Damon's golden eyes and Lily's delicate features, though her personality was pure mischievous wolf pup. "Mama, can we get the flowers?" Luna asked, tugging toward a vendor's stall filled with early spring blooms. "The pretty purple ones for Aunt Emma?" "Of course, sweetheart," Lily said, her heart warming at her daughter's thoughtfulness. At 3, Luna was already showing signs of her hybrid heritage. Enhanced senses, unusual strength for her age, and an empathetic connection to both humans and werewolves that never ceased to amaze her parents. They selected a bouquet of lavender and white roses, Luna carefully choosing each stem with the serious concentration that made her look exactly like Damon when he was considering pack business. The vendor, Mrs. Patterson, beamed at them both. "How's that husband of yours, dear?" she asked, wrapping the flowers with practiced efficiency. "Haven't seen him around the market lately." "Busy with work," Lily replied diplomatically. The human world knew Damon Blackwood as a successful CEO who'd recently expanded his business into environmental conservation and community development. They had no idea that his real work involved mediating territorial disputes between supernatural species and overseeing the peaceful integration of various shifter communities into Pacific Northwest society. "Well, you tell him Mrs. Patterson says hello. And this little angel gets a cookie on the house." She handed Luna a sugar cookie shaped like a flower, which the toddler accepted with a brilliant smile that would have melted even Victor's cold heart. As they continued through the market, Lily reflected on how much had changed since that terrifying night in the warehouse district. The supernatural world was still hidden from most humans, but it was no longer a world of constant secrecy and fear. Under Damon's leadership, and with Lily's unique abilities as a bridge between species, they'd created something unprecedented, a truly peaceful coexistence. The pack had grown, welcoming not just werewolves but other shifters who'd been living in isolation. Bears from Alaska, ravens from the Olympic Peninsula, even a small family of selkies from the coast. Lily's healing abilities and natural diplomatic skills had made her the perfect Luna Queen for this new era of supernatural cooperation. "Mama, look!" Luna pointed excitedly at a familiar figure approaching through the crowd. "It's Aunt Emma." Emma Reyes jogged toward them, her scrubs traded for casual weekend clothes, her face bright with the joy that had never quite left her since waking from her coma 5 years ago. She'd returned to nursing with a renewed passion for life, eventually specializing in pediatric trauma care. She had no memory of the supernatural events that had nearly killed her, but she'd retained an inexplicable ability to comfort frightened children and an intuitive understanding of when someone needed help. Sometimes Lily wondered if Emma's brief contact with the supernatural world had left her with enhanced empathy, but she'd never investigated too closely. Her friend was happy, healthy, and safely ignorant of the dangerous world that surrounded her. That was what mattered. "There are my favorite girls." Emma scooped Luna into a hug, spinning her around until the little girl shrieked with laughter. "Are you ready for our big adventure today?" "Adventure?" Lily asked, raising an eyebrow. "I thought we were just going to brunch." "We are. But first, we have a surprise." Emma's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Someone very special wants to see Luna." Before Lily could ask who, a familiar voice called out from behind them. "I hope there's room for one more at this family reunion." Lily spun around to see James Chun walking toward them, his arms open wide and his face creased with the smile she remembered from childhood. Her uncle, her father's younger brother who'd been traveling the world for the past 3 years. Looked older but happier, his hair silver now but his steps still energetic. "Uncle James!" Lily flew into his arms, feeling like a child again herself. Luna watched this reunion with wide eyes, having heard stories about her great-uncle, but never having met him. "Look at you," James said, holding her at arm's length to study her face. "You're glowing, sweetheart. Marriage and motherhood agree with you. What are you doing here? I thought you were in New Zealand." "I was. But Emma called and said I had a great niece I needed to meet, and a nephew-in-law who apparently deserves my approval." His eyes twinkled. "Plus, she mentioned something about important family history that couldn't wait any longer." Lily's breath caught. She'd always wondered how much her extended family knew about their supernatural heritage. Her parents had died before she could ask the right questions, and her aunt had taken those secrets to her grave 2 years ago. "Uncle James," she said carefully, "what do you know about our family? About where we come from?" He smiled and knelt down to Luna's level. "Hello, little moon child. Do you know why your eyes are so pretty and golden?" Luna giggled. "Because I'm special like Daddy." "That's right. And do you know why you can talk to the ravens in the park, and why you always know when someone is sad?" Luna nodded solemnly. "Because I'm a bridge. Mama told me." James looked up at Lily with approval. "You're raising her well. She knows what she is without being burdened by it." "James," Emma interrupted gently, "maybe we should have this conversation somewhere more private?" "Good idea." James stood, taking Luna's free hand. "I know the perfect place. There's a little coffee shop near the waterfront where the owner is very understanding about unusual family discussions." The coffee shop turned out to be a cozy place called The Sanctuary, tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing boutique. The moment they walked in, Lily felt the subtle tingle of supernatural wards and protective spells woven into the very walls. The owner, a woman with silver-streaked hair and knowing eyes, greeted James like an old friend. "The usual table, Mr. Chin? Please, Margaret. And perhaps some of your special hot chocolate for the little one." They settled into a corner booth that was somehow more private than it should have been, given the shop's small size. Luna immediately curled up next to Emma, who began braiding the child's dark hair with the automatic ease of a beloved aunt. "Now then," James said, settling back in his chair. "Where should I begin? With your great-great-grandmother who could speak to wolves? With the ancestor who helped establish the first supernatural sanctuary in the Oregon Territory? Or perhaps with your parents, who died protecting the location of the most important guardian bloodline in North America?" Lily's coffee cup rattled against its saucer as her hand shook. "They didn't die in a car accident. No, sweetheart. They died defending our family's secrets from a group of hunters who'd spent decades tracking our lineage. They died heroes, making sure that knowledge stayed buried until you were old enough and strong enough to claim your inheritance. My inheritance? James smiled. Your power, of course. But also this. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an ornate wooden box, its surface carved with symbols that seemed to shift and move in Lily's peripheral vision. What is it? The Chun family grimoire. Generations of knowledge about bridge magic, healing techniques, diplomatic protocols for dealing with various supernatural species. Everything our ancestors learned about maintaining peace between worlds. Lily stared at the box, feeling power radiating from it like heat from a fire. Why now? Why didn't anyone tell me about this before? Because you had to choose your path freely. If you'd known you were destined to be a bridge between worlds, would your love for Damon have been real? Would your choices have been truly yours? James's expression grew serious. Your parents made me promise to only reveal this after you'd found your mate and accepted your role naturally. Uncle James, Emma said softly, I don't understand half of what you're talking about, but I can see this is important. Should I leave you two alone? No, Lily said immediately, reaching for her friend's hand. If this is about who I really am, then you should know too. You're family, Emma. You've always been family. James studied Emma with curious eyes. She doesn't remember, does she? The attack at the hospital. Remember what? Emma looked between them, confusion clear in her expression. Nothing, Lily said firmly. Some things are better left forgotten. Perhaps, James agreed. But she should know that she's under the pack's protection for life. Her sacrifice didn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. What sacrifice? Emma asked, but before anyone could answer, the coffee shop door chimed, and a familiar presence filled the space. Damon walked in, his golden eyes immediately finding his family across the room. He'd clearly come straight from pack business. His hair was mussed and there was a tension in his shoulders that spoke of difficult negotiations. But when Luna saw him, she squealed "Daddy," and launched herself from the booth, all that supernatural strength and speed propelling her across the room faster than any human child should have been able to move. Damon caught her effortlessly, spinning her around as his expression softened into pure love. There's my little moon. Have you been good for Mama and Aunt Emma? I helped pick flowers and I met Great Uncle James and he has magic stories. Luna babbled excitedly, her golden eyes sparkling with delight. Damon's gaze found James over their daughter's head, and Lily could practically see him cataloging threats and assessing intentions with alpha thoroughness. Mr. Chun, Damon said politely, extending his free hand. I've heard a lot about you from Lily. All good things, I hope, James replied, shaking Damon's hand with equal politeness. Though I suspect you've been running background checks on me since the moment you learned I existed. Damon's smile was sheepish. Pack security is important, especially where my family is concerned. As it should be. You're protecting something precious. James gestured to the ornate box on the table. I was just explaining to Lily about her family's legacy. Damon's eyes sharpened as he took in the magical artifacts, and Lily could practically see him shifting into Alpha King mode. What kind of legacy? The kind that explains why she was able to destroy Victor with guardian magic, why she can heal supernatural injuries, and why your daughter talks to ravens, James said calmly. The Chun family has been serving as bridges between the supernatural and human worlds for over 3 centuries. Daddy, what are bridges? Luna asked, clearly following more of the conversation than a normal 3-year-old should. Bridges help different people understand each other, Damon explained, settling into the booth beside Lily with Luna on his lap. They bring peace where there might otherwise be fighting. Like what Mama does when the big wolves argue. Exactly like that. Damon's hand found Lily's under the table, squeezing gently. Your Mama is very good at helping everyone get along. Am I going to be a bridge too? Someday, if you choose to be, Lily said, echoing the words James had used about her own destiny. But for now, you just get to be our little moon. Luna seemed satisfied with this answer and turned her attention to exploring the contents of James's magical box, her small fingers tracing symbols that glowed softly at her touch. She's already incredibly powerful, James observed. Stronger than you were at her age, Lily. The bloodline is getting stronger with each generation. Is that good or bad? Emma asked, practical concern in her voice. Good, if she's raised with wisdom and love, which she clearly is. James smiled at the family picture they made. Damon's protective presence, Lily's gentle strength, Luna's innocent curiosity, and even Emma's loving concern. She'll be the most powerful guardian in generations. She might even be the one to finally bring the supernatural world fully into the light. What do you mean? Lily asked. The old ways are changing. Humans are becoming more accepting of differences, more open to possibilities they once would have dismissed as fantasy. Within Luna's lifetime, there might not need to be secrets anymore. Lily considered this, watching her daughter examine a crystal that sparkled with inner light. A world where Luna wouldn't have to hide her nature, where love like hers and Damon's wouldn't require secrecy and constant vigilance. It seemed almost too wonderful to hope for. But that's the future, James continued. For now, you have a family to raise and a pack to lead. Speaking of which, he pulled a thick envelope from his jacket. Wedding present. 5 years late, but better than never. Lily opened the envelope to find property deeds, legal documents, and photographs of a beautiful lodge nestled in the mountains north of Seattle. It's been in our family for generations, James explained. A safe house, a gathering place, a training ground for young guardians. I think it's time it came back into active use. James, this is too much, Lily protested, but he waved her objections away. Nonsense. It's your birthright. Besides, Luna will need somewhere to learn to control her abilities as she grows older. And from what I hear, your pack could use a proper retreat center for meetings and ceremonies. Damon was studying the photographs with interest. It's beautiful, and strategically positioned for protecting the territory. Plus, Emma added with a grin, it looks like the perfect place for family vacations. Assuming I'm still invited to those. Always, Lily said firmly, squeezing her friend's hand. Family doesn't end in blood, Em. You taught me that. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the sanctuary, sharing stories and looking through the Chun family grimoire. Emma listened to the edited version of their adventures with fascination, accepting the supernatural elements as elaborate metaphors rather than literal truth. It was better that way, safer for everyone. As the sun began to set, casting golden light through the coffee shop's windows, Luna fell asleep in her father's arms, exhausted by the day's revelations and magical encounters. We should head home, Lily said softly, gathering up the precious family artifacts. Thank you, Uncle James. For everything. Don't thank me yet. Read the grimoire, practice the techniques, and then decide if you're grateful or not. His smile took the sting out of the words. But I have a feeling you're going to do amazing things with this knowledge. Will you stay in Seattle for a while? Damon asked. Luna should get to know her great-uncle properly. For a few months, yes. I'd like to see this lodge property, maybe help you set it up properly. And, he glanced at Emma, who was helping Margaret clear their table. I have a feeling there are other family connections worth exploring. Lily followed his gaze and saw the way Emma and Margaret were chatting, the older woman's eyes bright with something that might have been recognition. Emma has abilities, she realized. Doesn't she? Dormant ones, awakened by her contact with your world. She doesn't consciously know it, but she's been using empathic healing magic in her work with injured children. Margaret recognized it immediately. Should we tell her? That's not our choice to make. But perhaps, with time and the right guidance, she'll figure it out on her own. As they prepared to leave, Lily felt a deep sense of completion. Her daughter would grow up knowing her heritage, surrounded by love and magic and possibilities. Her husband continued to build a better world for all supernatural beings. Her best friend was discovering her own gifts in her own time. And she herself had found the balance she'd always sought, between human and wolf, between love and duty, between the ordinary world and the extraordinary one she'd chosen. Ready to go home? Damon asked, adjusting their sleeping daughter in his arms. Lily looked around the sanctuary one more time, at the magical artifacts that represented her family's legacy, at Emma saying goodbye to Margaret with promises to return soon, at Uncle James packing away centuries of supernatural wisdom. More ready than I've ever been, she said, and meant it. They walked out into the Seattle evening, a family bound by love and magic and the promise of tomorrow. In the distance, wolves howled their evening song, and Lily could swear she heard welcome in those ancient voices. Luna stirred in her father's arms and mumbled sleepily, Daddy, the wolves are singing happy songs. That's because they know you're home, little moon, Damon replied, pressing a kiss to her dark hair. And as they made their way through the city toward their house on Queen and Hill, the same house where Lily had once hidden from Marcus, where she'd first felt the mate bond's pull, where she'd made the choice to love a werewolf, she knew that every moment of struggle had been worth it. Every fear conquered, every sacrifice made, every impossible choice navigated had led to this. Walking through the twilight with her mate and their daughter, carrying the legacy of guardians and the promise of a future where love truly could conquer all. Behind them, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, and ahead of them, their house glowed with warm light, waiting to shelter another evening of the extraordinary ordinary life they'd built together. Home, family, love, magic, everything she'd ever dreamed of, and more than she'd ever dared hope for. Perfect. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share, and subscribe for more.